So I'm going to be showing you guys a bit of how I do all the themes and the editing. So there's going to be two timestamps, one where we have the themes and one where we have me explaining the editing. I'm going to start off with the themes first because it will be a bit faster and quicker than going through the whole editing process. So if you're here for the themes, stick around. And if you're just here for the editing, go to the timestamp. And if you're here for both, that good for you. I guess you want to enjoy watching both. Great time. So I'm going to get started with the theme. So I sadly um, do not have the original theme for Flip of Fate. I reset my computer not too long ago and I lost the project files for those. So all I have right now are a couple things. First, I have the beginning theme of Echo in the Pines. I have their outro. I have a outro that I never actually released because I listened back on it and I didn't like it. I have Preacher's theme that you heard episode 6 when he got introduced. And then I have one that I made for something I want to do later on. I'll also talk about. But first, let's go into Echo in the Pines. I mean, that one was a fun one. I loved doing that one. And what I did specifically, and what I always do in making themes, is I always start with a main melody. And if you're wondering where I found all these melodies, it's super nice. I use a program called Splice. So here, this is kind of what I do. This is how I had it for this one. So it has a bunch of sounds. So I have a bunch of them in my library. Like I have this little like abandoned building ambience right here. I have this dagger one if it loads and plays. I have a piano melody. Basically, you're able to take like these instruments, and let's say for the Halloween one, I knew I wanted to do a piano because I searched up a bunch of like different horror themes and a bunch of like thriller horrors. So like it's a bunch of piano and violins and like fast paced stuff. So I was like, okay, I know I want keys, I know I want strings, and I know I want some type of ambience to kind of back it up. So what I first started with was keys. I wanted a melody. And with this, it makes it really easy because I can take an instrument. Let's say I want like an electric piano. Click that. I can also change it if I want anything else from here. I find one I like. So if I play this one and it actually like wants to play, but it's glitching out for some reason. So if I play it, then I can pick also the genre. I can pick the key I want it. So if I want it in E minor or E major, or let's just say F, we can clear out the major. We can just keep it F. And let's say I want it at 130. Let's find that. So once I do that, that's 630. We want 130. If I find one I like, then I can go and be like, okay, now that I found one I like, now I need to find like a kick for it. So then I go and I look at the kicks and I find one that has the same beats to match with it. And that's kind of how I go along with everything. I find something I like, and then grab the key and grab the beats per minute and then build upon that. So that's what I did for over here. Let's move this to the side again. Now here's what I started with. I had this piano like scratchy radio, which I liked especially because it was set in the 90s, the Halloween one shot. So I know I wanted like some type of scratchy horror radio old thing. I just needed to find it, which then I found this piano, which goes like this. Obviously, we all know the theme. And as I was messing around with that, I found these heartbeats. And well, I'll explain a bit more, but I just found this. And when I saw that, I was like, I really want to do something with the heartbeats. They sound really nice. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I kind of left it. I kind of put it to the side and muted it. And then I just kept going on. So after I found that, I'm like, okay, I need some violins. And when I was looking for violins, I found this guy, which was like nice cello, a bit still high pitched. Not we don't have that real bass, that ambience yet to kind of fill in the spaces. And when I found that, as I kept looking, because I was like, yeah, I want a synth. I knew I wanted a synth of some sort. I just didn't know what. And in that, I found this like X-Files type piano, or I guess not piano, but it's a harp. And it's very X-Files adjacent, and I like that a lot because it's like we're doing this 90s horror with also this like supernatural aspect. So obviously if you listen to the one shot, so I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So I kept with that, and in doing that I was like, okay, so now I have this high scratchy piano, right? And that's a bit slower. I have this faster paced cello, and then I also have this X-Files thing. I'm like, now I need some type of bass, basically. That's what I'm thinking in my head, because I don't want to make it too complicated, till it gets like muffled, because you can put too much in one track. So instead, what I did is that I just made, and I got this bass, and I was like, oh, okay. And I found this synth, and it's kind of this kind of bring it all together. And like you can slightly hear it in the back if you look at the tracks right here, right? I know it's a bit hard to see, but you have this one's the track, and it's down a bit more than the others. That's just because I didn't want it to overpower it, the rest of the things, and I put the strings up a bit because once I put it all together, and then I mix it and kind of figure out how I like it. So once I did that, I was like, okay, I need the bass down a bit because it was a bit too powerful, and I wanted the strings up because those are kind of the centerpiece. It's the main melody you hear along with the piano, and the piano right here is just, I never moved that. Same with the second melody. If any, I moved it down a tad bit, not as much as the bass, but it was just because it's turned a bit to the right. So I panned it a bit to the right, and when I mean panned, it means like if your ear is like, I don't know, the camera's zoomed in. Let's say it's a bit to the right. So like if your head's facing front, then it just moved to the right. And that's kind of how you want to think of it. So I panned it a bit to the right, and I panned the strings a bit to the left right here, if you see. And the reason I did that is to give it room to breathe in a sense. Because what I want is I don't want them to all be centered and then all get mushed together. So that's why I tend to try and pan it and mix it, because it also is kind of a cool thing where you hear the bass and you hear the piano in the middle, and then you kind of hear the strings to the left a bit and the second melody to the right, and it's kind of this like, it's all going around you type deal, and it sounds really cool, which is why I wanted to stick with that. So, and you obviously, you see more than, you're like, well, there's 4 tracks, why is there this? And I'll explain what this is after, but so when you put it all together, it goes like this. And this is like the main thing, a bit to the left. Not enough where it's noticeable, but enough to separate it from this part. And you can hear the difference if this was. It adds that's what it's for. This is kind of the backing of it all. This fills in the cracks, or else it feels kind of fill in. And that's kind of what I think of bass. As someone that plays bass, it's kind of helped fill in. You're not supposed to try and be the main melody. You're just trying to help support it and back it up to make it sound full. And after I did that, I was like, okay, now I want the heartbeats. What am I going to do with the heartbeats? Obviously. And I was like, well, in the main theme, obviously, we use a coin flip sound effect. And we use that to transition between the theme to the introduction, from the introduction to the main campaign once we get into characters. And we kind of use that to as just a switch, and we used that because obviously Flip of Fate, and that was actually Logan's idea. Was I was making the theme, and I was like, well, I really want to. In the very beginning, in the very first episode, it's like that basic fantasy theme, and then it switches to our main theme, and I was like, I need some type of transition. I don't know what to do, and Logan looks and he's like, we're called Flip of Fate. Why don't we just do like a coin flip into transition? Wouldn't that be cool? And I just stare at him. I'm like, yes, that would be cool. I'm taking that idea. Thank you. And I found a coin flip sound effect, and the rest is history. And I was like, okay, what if we use heartbeats to lead in, because it's like it's kind of it grabs your attention. The heartbeats, obviously, these loud heartbeats grab your attention, and then in doing that, it also we used it as a transitioning tool from the intro into or from the theme into the intro, which is cool. We were like, instead of a coin flip, what if you use heartbeats? Because it's like this horror, and when you're scared, obviously, you kind of tend to hear your own heartbeats a bit, especially if your anxiety and your anxiety's through the roof, and you're just hearing your own thoughts and own heartbeat. So I was like, what if we did that? And we slowly did heartbeat, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to slowly fade this. So if you look closely, right here, I'll zoom in on it a bit. Right here is a volume control, okay? So I slowly did this -2 decibels, and then I did this -4, so that when it starts, this this is called a fade, this red line, okay? I use these a lot when editing, so just so that you guys know, this is called fading. It's when I can just adjust it, I can pull it back, I can take it and I can pull it, and it basically slowly rises the volume to how you want it. You can also like change the fades if you want to. I forget what the click. I forget what that button is for that. But yeah, so that's called fading. So it basically slowly does it. So as the heartbeat gets gradually slower, the music slowly starts to go like to a full volume, which is nice. And the same with this. This kind of helps ease it in too. If you try and stick stuff right in the middle, it might sound a bit too sharp and a bit too like it just was placed there. So it helps kind of ease it in like you would be when you're playing an instrument, which is how we got this whole thing. And I obviously had to place the beat in a bit of a way where it matched the same tempo of the piano, which was kind of just taking and kind of slowly moving. If I can press shift, I can slowly nudge it. So it's basically me just going like this till I found the sweet spot. And with this guy, I was like, okay, I want to hit that and do that. But if I just go from here, and let's say I just go here, and then that doesn't sound great. I don't like that. It doesn't sound like I would want it to sound. And I was like, I want these to ring out. And obviously, the ones that I took, the samples I took, don't ring out. So instead is I added a reverb to it. So this is just a fab filter. It's just this. It has a bunch of different ones: large, medium, small, ambience, a bunch of different halls and big things you can do to create reverb, or at least how it would sound in a big room. So that's what I did, and I basically placed them and slowly faded them in. And the reason I faded them is because if I did it here, you'd be able to hear it about here, and that's kind of not what I want, because then it overlaps with this. So what you want to do is you want to slowly have it so it's just the end, which is why this all happens. So instead you get, and if you notice, it immediately turns off. So like if I were to just do this, it immediately stops right there, and that's how I timed the heartbeat so that you wouldn't even notice it stop. And that's just kind of how I went about it, is that I just took this and then I just kind of added it till I got what I liked, I mixed it around a bit more, and that's how I got this theme. So this is the first theme done. This is the beginning theme. And I'll explain. Actually, I'll go to episode 1 right now. This is episode 1 here. So let me unmute this. We're just going to mute this all but you. So if you look right here, we have this guy. And the day of, obviously the theme is, that's not the whole theme. You have the whole, this is 103 Echo in the Pines that Dawson said. And the reason it's not in the theme is because that was a last minute ad. If you didn't know, Dawson texted me like the 2 nights before this was post release, maybe even a night before, and was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do like, what if it was like a radio thing and I announce it to play the theme? And I was like, oh, I could like that. I could get behind that. So I was like, just send me your voice files and I'll, work the magic on it. So I just added this and plugged him up and put him in here. And this is just a kind of a mastering, mixing type deal. So this one's just a phone preset it has on here. So when I do that, it makes it sound like a bit of a phone because it raises and then mutes some of the stuff, lows. So it makes
the Echo in the Pines, you are listening here today, and I hope you enjoy.
If it sounds familiar, it's because it's the same phone preset I use when Urdin or one of us is calling each other in the episodes. Right now we're out of minutes, obviously, but that's what I did use. And I found just some sound effects. This one is just a whole static. And then I made it, and then I found one that matched the same pitch. Because I wanted I wanted to basically think of it as like, if I'm reaching for a radio, I'm going, and then I am turning it to how I want to, and then once I turn it to how I want to, and then I'm able to turn on the thing. So I'm basically like just fidgeting with it, because if I'm thinking of it as like, if you know what I'm talking about, like the handheld radios, if anything, where it's like you tune it and then you click it and it has the big old buttons on it. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, search it up, take a quick search. So I basically wanted that, like you're someone messing with this. So, and then I found this nice click that came from an actual like radio button. And that's how we got.
Hello and welcome back to 103 Echo in the Pines. You are listening here today, and I hope you enjoy.
And that's how we got the whole 103 Echo in the Pines. So that is the beginning theme for you. So now that that is done, we're going to close out of that. Here is our outro theme. And I basically did the same process. I found this guy. And it really reminded me of like Halloween song, like a Halloween thing, like in like, I forget which movies, but basically in like Halloween movies, if there's like ever instruments being played and it's by like a bone, it's always kind of that sound. So that's kind of what I wanted to mimic. And when I found that, I was like, okay, this is great. And then that like that little wavy, I really like that because that just kind of was Halloween themey to me. It really clicked. And when I did that, I also found this one that kind of, and it goes. So when you put the two together, it goes. And it mixes and it works really well. And then I was like, okay, now I need some drums. So I took your basic drums and a basic beat because I didn't want to go over complicated. And I was like, okay. And then I wanted to do this one thing because I really like those like themes or songs where it's like it has an electric in one ear and then like strumming in the other, and it does like a riff and then strumming, and I really like that and I wanted to mimic that. So I found one where it was just and I put that, if you look right here, that is all the way to the right. And then I found this one and that is all the way to the right, and then the strumming is all the way to the left. Sorry about that. I mixed those up. And when you put it together, obviously you get the whole, and it just tickles my brain. I just like it. So and then I was like, okay, so now I put it all together. I put the drums to I want to, because I didn't want them to come in at the same time, because I feel like if I did it all at once, I wanted it to ease in to each other, to really build up. Basically, I wanted everything to build up and up and up, and then it drops into the credits, and then it comes back again, basically, is how I thought of it. So that's why I faded it, and I faded it a lot. If you look, like, this is a big old fade because it slowly goes. And then I made one that just repeats everything.
This has been Echo in the Pine.
Quiet. Because if I put it back, it goes
Echo.
But and then it obviously goes back to everything here. And then it rings out again. And this time I only did this one because I tried ringing out all of them like I did last time, and it didn't sound great at all. So I just chose to do that. And then it would transition to a blooper if we had a blooper. And for Israel's and for the final episode, the final finale of the Halloween one shot we did. So I was able to do that. And in doing that, let me just say, we also had one that I made that was scrapped because I listened back to it and I just didn't like it at all. And when I wanted this theme, if I'm being totally honest, what I told Dawson when I was coming up and I was just kind of thinking of ideas, because I was like, I want it Halloween. I really would want like a creepy horror beginning to kind of go into the episode. And then I want like almost in JJK is when it has this whole like death scene or whatever, and then it immediately goes to an upbeat song, and I'm like, that would be really funny because this is supposed to be some dark horror. Like the comedy was kind of there sometimes, especially in like Israel and Parker's. I feel like we swapped the personalities compared to the main campaign. So I wanted this like really like, because every time we ended it with like some type of thing that happened or something. And then I was like, I really want this dark, messed up thing to happen, and then to have this fun, upbeat theme. So the original one we did was this. And this was kind of like more of a cyberpunk-esque, like sci-fi horror theme. Like it had this fun little plucking I liked. But it seemed like too EDM in a sense. And I just didn't like it, especially with like we had this guy. And I really like this one. It was very nice bass, which I always like to help fill in. And then I got this piano. And I really enjoyed the piano. And then I had this other synth. And this is kind of what did it, is I think, is this guy. I really just liked the beat because it was very... just the pausing and everything was very... So when you put it all together, it sounded like this. And then it all came in at once too, which I just didn't like. And then also I had this very like trappy, very stale, very like not acoustic. And I just didn't like that. I thought it was good at first, and then I listened back to it the next day, and I'm like, man, this sucked. That one was not good at all. I just didn't like it. I didn't vibe with it anymore. And I was like, this is not what I'm wanting in the theme. And I was like, what if I made a jazzy theme, which is how we ended up with obviously this fun one we did. And I just texted Dawson because we kind of go over everything. And I was like, hey, I'm going to redo the theme. I don't like what I did. Give me a bit. And like 2 hours later, because I had free time, so I just worked on this. And about 2 hours later, he gets a MP3 file sent to his phone. And I'm like, listen to this. This is a lot better than the old one, trust me. So that's kind of how we did those themes. And I did the same thing. I mean, I obviously took this a bit far to the right and this far to the left. And then I kind of spread these guys around. And what I kept in the middle was I spread this one to the left and then spread this one a bit to the right. So then you could separate them, kind of hear them. And then with this guy, drums, so I kept it in the middle. And then these guys are obviously far left, far right. And that's kind of what I kept. So that's that. Now, because we don't have the main theme, I will show you a couple more themes I made. This one is Preacher's theme. And if you didn't hear it, go back to episode 6 when Preacher's introduced, and even the transition from Preacher and Ian to Fido and Karn, and you'll hear it. I couldn't play all of it, obviously, because I made it 32 seconds. And I'm not having an interlude for 32 seconds on the podcast, because that is just way too long for a transition little bit music thing. So I made this, and I wanted obviously some, because he's like this metal robot thing, and that's kind of all I was told till his character was introduced. So I was like, okay, he's metal, he's like this robot thing. I want to make some type of cowboy theme. This type of because he's metal robot cowboy, and I'm like, I want this type of robot, this metal, this like cowboy theme, and I want to kind of incorporate these like robotic or like metal sounds into a cowboy theme. So at first, obviously, I was like, okay, I need a guitar, I need something. So I found this. And that's your basics. It keeps it all together. And I was like, okay, now I need something that I'm going to pan a bit, which I found this. And as you can see, this is panned a bit to the right. And I was like, so now once I made the main theme, I'm like, okay, now I need two things that I hear in my right and my left ear to kind of give it, to make it sound a bit more whole and less empty. And then after that, obviously, I'm like, okay, now I need the second lower melody that acts as kind of the filler. And that's kind of the process I go about, is I find something I like, and then I'm like, okay, what would go good with this? Oh, maybe a banjo. Maybe I'll look for something like that. It's cowboy. And then I'm like, okay, now I need something else. What if I do like a plucking guitar to kind of go with the banjo? And then I'm like, okay, now I need something else. And then I found, well, you'll hear, because this is you'll hear it. So this is, and it's in your left ear. It also has strumming in your right, because it's panned a bit so much. It makes it a bit hard to understand, because if I did it unpanned, it helps it. Now, this one, you could obviously hear it, and I'll play it. And I was like, okay, I really like that. I like this simple plucking, and that's kind of what I wanted. So then I found this guy. And this was kind of like the crack filler. That simple little line. And then the ring out of the other one in your left ear. And I was like, okay, now I need drums. So I found some drums that I like. just kick and hi-hat and then snare. It was very simple, very acoustic. So when you put them all together, obviously you can... And you may be wondering, okay, Henry, what's this guy? What's this one right here? And that is the metal part. So this, if I put it right here, I'll show you. Let me. It's literally a metal sound effect. It's called Cinematic Anvil Strike. That's the file name. And you're like, okay. And I added, surprise, more reverb. And when I added more reverb, I wanted to add it with the drums. Almost, I wanted to make it kind of seem like a cymbal. So when you put it together, it kind of sounds like that. And that is because if I just put it like this, I tried it, and if I put it like this, it doesn't really work. So I wanted it to ring out a bit more, which is that's kind of was how I was able to just do his theme, because I was like, he's a new character introduced. We brought in one of our friends in late. I'll make a theme. I wanted to make a theme. I like making themes. It's fun pastime. So I was like, okay. And it gave me something, a little challenge. I'm like, how can I do a robot incorporated with a cowboy theme? And that's how I was able to sneak in this anvil strike, which was fun. And here's what I made that I totally forgot I made. And I named it Instrumental Theme Choice. If you look right here. And the reason I did is because I was kind of messing around, and I was kind of I was trying to make an interlude, because some of those interludes you hear is ones that I've put together, and they're not just yoinked from YouTube or whatever. And most of them, it's either I do just a bass piano and take it from Slice, or I make a whole thing, because again, I like doing this. So when I did this, I found this piano, and I was like, okay, this could be a fun little intro. And then I was like, okay, I'll play with it a bit more. And I found these drums, and I really loved these drums. Oh my gosh. Like, this was fun. And then I found this guy. And this one is the one this guy's just stay straight. And it's like this lo-fi, like, muted keys. Very fun. And then I found this synth, and this one's a bit to the right. And when I really made it, after I made it and thinking back on it, I'm like, oh, this kind of seems like, I don't know, because I play a lot of Life is Strange games and all these other choice-based narrative games. And like, even when you're in D&D and a character has to make a tough choice, and it has this theme in the background that kind of helps, like, it's just kind of a theme that fits with this idea of I have to make this choice, and time is kind of pausing, freeze framing in a bit, and you have to choose between A or B. And it's like this hard choice to make, which is why I'm keeping this, and I saved this, because I was like, I want to use this, I just don't know when I'll be able to use this, which is why it's only like 24 seconds, because I can obviously just take it and make it longer, right, by extending it all. And that's what I can do. So how I did this is that I was like, okay, I'll keep this, and I'll keep it in the bank. So this is in the bank, and if you ever hear this theme, know that some stuff is about to go down. And someone has to make a tough decision. So this is what it all sounds like together. I'm gonna play it. that's kind of the whole thing. And it's really that dun 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 dun. It's that thing. Dun, 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 dun. And that's kind of just like tickles my brain a bit, where it just makes me think, oh, there's some type of choice going down, because it's that repeating dun 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 dun, like you're stuck in this like moment, and you have to choose. And that's kind of, it's like this build up theme, if that, it's like a build up melody almost. It's like that dun 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 dun, and that's kind of what it makes me think of, is and why I saved it. So that is the themes. So now we're going to be moving on to the episodes. So if you're here for the themes, thank you. We'll be moving on to how I edit and my process behind that, which will take a bit longer. So if you're only here for the themes, you're all good to go. Bye. Listen to episode 9. It's out now. Oh, wait, no, that's episode 9. Listen to episode 8. It is out now. Listen to the one-shots. They were fun. We have a Christmas one-shot coming out soon, and I'll be streaming that on Twitch and live in my Discord, where you can actually chat in voice, or Twitch if you'd rather chat over text. And I'll be making the Halloween theme live for everyone to see. So have that. Now I'm going to be making talking about editing and how I edit a bit right now, and just going through a whole list. So if you're here for that, that starts now. Hey, this is how I'm going to be editing everything. I'll be going through my process, how I edit, what I do before I even start editing, and just kind of how I run through everything. And I'll just be giving a bit of a run through with that. So in saying that, let's start this. Now, right now, before I even do all of this, before I even touch the track, what I run it all through is this little program called Ophonic. Now, what this does is this will take, obviously, it says like 14 hours. And if I have 2-hour sessions, every time I do a production, so if I click new production, I have a preset. I highly recommend doing a preset, so it does everything for you. It puts it on mono. What this does is this will take it will take the loudness of something. So let's say I record at like 20 decibels. That is too quiet for podcast standards. What you want is 16 LUFS. And this basically takes your highs, and will even it out, and then takes the lows and will put those up higher to 16. And that's what this does. And I just kind of wanted to show you this in case you're either a podcaster or you're just curious on how we keep it all similar, is this. And obviously, I'll show you sometimes I have to kind of tweak it, because it doesn't catch everything, but it catches the main core. And it does a lot of the behind the scenes lifting. And sometimes, like, maybe Logan talks a bit quietly, so I have to raise up his voice a bit. But this does a lot of the heavy lifting of Phonic. Let me pull it up again real quick for you. It is Ophonic. If it is called Ophonic Productions, take it. It's amazing. Great. I love to use it. And make sure you get a preset when doing all this. So now that we have that, I'll show you this. This is a blank canvas for me. There's nothing, as you can see, we all kind of talk. I'm a loud talker. Parker really isn't a loud talker as much as I am. Logan's pretty loud. Israel's pretty loud. Parker's is not as loud as the rest of us when he's talking. So like I can play Parker Pot.
Wait, no, can I? Yeah.
And you can kind of see he's a bit quieter. Luckily, Ophonic does it, and I'll kind of show you what it looks like. But this is a blank canvas. When I do this, I will usually press, once it's all leveled up, I will press D on my keyboard, and this will dynamically split it. What that means is that it will take, if it will do a lot better job once it's all leveled, because what it does is that it has a threshold it meets, and anything below, or I guess above this threshold, gets cut, because that is too low of decibel, or I guess that is not enough decibels for it to keep it in. That is too low, and that's usually considered either cross audio leakage or empty air, and it will keep everything that's talking. So what I mean by this is that me and the four guys here, we all record in the same room. Me, Logan, Israel, Parker, right? Dawson, who lives in Redacted, we play with him over Discord. So he's on a monitor of mine. If you look at the behind the scenes video on our Instagram, you'll be able to see how I set it all up. He records on Discord and records everything on Reaper as well, and then sends me the MP3s, and then I put it on and match it and sync it up and everything. But for the guys, there is audio leakage. What that means is that if you look here,
Yes.
sometimes we're talking. The Great Gatsby haircut, is that what that is called audio leakage. That is when a mic that's not the main speaker's mic picks up in another mic. So let's say I'm talking here, it picks up in my mic. The right? Great Gatsby. Right. But then it also picks up in Logan's mic. That's called audio leakage. We don't want that because, and how I do it is that I pan the voices. It helps. Panning helps when making it so it doesn't seem so muddy, because if you put all the voices together like as one, it makes it seem very muddy, and it's not great. It doesn't sound great. It sounds very like mushed, and when we're talking a lot and we tend to argue, obviously, and like bicker and try and get our point across, and then we all end up talking, right? It helps to separate the voices so that if you listen, you hear someone else, then you can listen back and hear a different person in the same clarity, right? So that's why I pan the voices, and I usually pan them to who talks to each other the most. So like this was we're all back together, right? And this is the next episode, and this is a default, so this is a template I made. So in Reaper, you can save projects as templates. So it's basically as easy as clicking all of these together and then pressing save as template. So I have a template where it will just add all these at once, and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to add any effects. It will add all my effects I need, and it will also keep the panning. So for Logan and Israel, since they usually bicker with each other, I put Logan a bit 30% to the left, Israel 30% to the right. I put me and Parker 15% to the right, and then me 15% to the left. And then obviously Dawson as the DM narrator, he's straight in the middle as kind of the overseer of everything. It kind of makes it seem like you're also at a table because you're able to hear Dawson in the middle, because usually that's where a DM would sit. And then you have me, and then Parker, and then you have Logan, and then Israel. And it's really nice just sound wise because you're able to hear them talking back and forth, and it doesn't seem like they're just popping up straight in the middle of you. It seems like they're having a conversation with each other where they're walking, and then Logan talks to Israel, or even if it's like I'm talking to Logan right here, it still works out in a great way. So that's why I dynamically split everything, is so that it takes out most of the audio leakage. Let me just clarify, most of it. It does not take out all of it. There's still a lot of cleanup I have to do. So when I mean cleanup, I mean, let me just kind of show you what a regular track. Let's pull up episode 8, because I started on this. I don't need to kind of show you this anymore. This is just a regular track I did edit on. Let's pull up episode 8 now. So when I start this, and when I go about doing all this, here's what the tracks look like. Let me unmute them. This is the whole thing. So let's start from the beginning, my thought process when doing all this. Once I oh my gosh, I'm stuttering. Once I dynamically split everything, what I do then is I go and I will start cleaning it up. And what I mean by cleaning it up is obviously there's audio leakage, and there's some tracks, and there's some ones that hit a certain thing that I need to take away. So let's say this is what I basically do is I will go and I'll take a chunk and I'll basically highlight a chunk. I'll move it over a bit, and then I'll take, like, I usually do it by 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes if I'm ballsy, because I don't want to lose my place if I have the time to. And I'll basically go to each track and I'll just listen through it. And when I hear audio leak, I'll just basically Control X, which is just deleting it. And I'll Control Z that to bring that back. But I basically do that and I delete it, and then I'll just keep going through and deleting audio leak and basically cleaning it up. If I hear clicks, and that's usually like people, like when you talk, you like smack your mouth a bit and you hear those, right? And you hear that, and we don't want to hear that, and we don't want to hear that when we're listening to a podcast and all you hear is yeah so, and it's like, it's a bit annoying to hear. So I go and I take and I edit that, and obviously I have programs where it will declick and ds, and S is basically like what sometimes S's a lot get a bit more pressure in them. So this kind of takes like plosives, which if you don't know what plosives are like p, like your p sounds, your p plosives, and your s's, all this. Basically what these plugins do, these are called isotope plugins, great plugins. Same with fab filters, great plugins. And this is basically will take away and kind of mute the s's. It doesn't like mute it, it doesn't like take it away from the track. It will just kind of dim it down. It will kind of gate it and push it down so it's less what's the word? It's less in your face. It's basically pushes it to the background so it just all sounds normal. This one's a mouth declick. I put both on there because it helps. It does a bunch of the like the heavy lifting for me, and then all I have to do is just take the ones that it doesn't hear. The deplosive obviously does what I thought you think it is. This one's a plugin I got for free, but it works really well. I got it when I got another plugin a while ago, because sometimes they give you like free ones, or you're able to get a credit for a free one that they've made. And this one's called D-Breath. It basically just takes your breaths out, like your like it takes all those out, and it's really amazing. It's actually, it's so amazing. It does its job very well. Sometimes I still have to take a breath and I'll cut it out, and I'll basically just be like, oh, there's a breath here, okay, time to move that. And then this is kind of all, I'll go through my process. This guy acts as gate. There is fab filter gates. I find that sometimes the background noise is a bit too strong for those. This is a voice noise. What this does is it actively will...
Hello, welcome back everyone. This is your dad and your D. Hello, welcome back everyone. This is your dad and your DM Dawson speaking, and welcome back to Flip of Fate. This is
take away the background noise and adapt and learn so that it still keeps the main voice, but it also takes the background noise away. So if you look at it without it, and we just play it without anything.
Hello, welcome back everyone. This is your dad and your DM Dawson speaking.
It also just makes it a bit clearer, a bit crisper, less muddy. And that's kind of what my leveling and kind of my EQ does when I EQ. This is just a loudness meter. This just makes sure that it's all at the same levels. This one's also a DS thing. I just find it helps. Put a couple together. This one doesn't do much, so I don't tend to use it a lot, and I kind of just sometimes mute it. This is the main guy. This is what I use to EQ everything. So if you're wondering what this does, I'm basically taking a bit of the highs and a lot of the lows out. I take away that muddiness so that, one, because we're all far away, or at least Dawson is compared to the four guys, I want to make it all sound like we're in the same room, and this helps a lot with that. It pairs well with this to take away the background noise, and then this to take away the muddiness. And then I take a bit of the frequencies in the middle, the muddy stuff, and I just want to keep this. So if you want to hear what it sounds like without it.
Hello, welcome back everyone. This is your dad and your... Welcome back, everyone. This is your dad and your DM, Dawson, speaking, and welcome back to Flip of Fate. This is episode 8, and we are getting started in the heat of battle, so we're going to make introductions quick.
It helps add it all. So this is also a compressor, and it kind of gives it a nice little compression. So
hello, welcome back, everyone. This is your dad and your DM, Dawson, speaking, and welcome back to Flip of Fate. Hello, welcome back, everyone. Hello, welcome back, everyone. Hello, welcome back, everyone. This is your dad and your DM.
And if I took them all off, then you obviously can hear.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. This is your dad and your DM, Dawson, speaking, and welcome back to M. Dawson speaking, and welcome to 8, and we are getting started in the heat of battle, so we're gonna make it in the heat of battle, so we're gonna get you back onto.
Obviously, hear
hello,
it sounds a lot cleaner.
Welcome back, everyone. This is your dad and your DM, Dawson speaking, dad and your DM, Dawson speaking. This is
we used Rode Pod mics. Like we used, I believe they're $100. We use Rode Pod mics, and those do wonders. They're great. They're cheap, and for podcast mics, I mean podcast standard mics, they're cheap, and they're absolutely amazing. Oh my gosh, they are killers. But what this does is basically just clean up the audio and makes it sound crisp.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. This is your dad and your DM.
Right and now that it's just set there, I use it every time. But like the first beginning episodes 1, 2, and 3 were kind of my training wheels when editing, because I've never edited a podcast before. I've never edited something to this scale like a D&D podcast. So a lot of this was new, and a lot of this was basically going on YouTube and searching up a bunch of stuff. Which, if you're curious and have more questions, join our Discord. I mean, what you doing if you're not? We have a link tree in the bio of our YouTube. Make sure to look at that, find our Instagram, find our Discord, come and chat and say hi, and you can talk to me and hang out. And I'm so game to answer any questions. I love talking about this. I could yap people's ears off for hours, okay? So what I wanted with this is it basically cleans up the audio, and that's kind of what it looks like. And once the audio is cleaned up and everything, and obviously it's preset now, so all I have to do is just turn it on and it works like magic. Compared to when I first started and I was messing around a lot. And also, if you're curious why you might not notice it a lot, but Dawson's voice sounds a lot clearer by episode like 5 and 6 compared to episode 1 through 4. And that is because he got a Rode Pod mic. He was using this cheap $10 mic he bought off Amazon, and he recently moved, so as a housewarming gift, I bought him a Rode Pod mic for this whole thing so that he's able to use that and use the same mic as us. So then you don't really hear a difference, because it kind of takes out the immersion for me, at least. If I hear two different quality of mics, it's like, oh, like they're not all in the same thing, and it takes out the immersion of them being in the same place. So if you have all the same mics, then you're able to actually like, oh, they're all talking, they're all sounding the same. It like keeps me in there just as a sound guy. Honestly, sometimes as someone that edits and does this, it will take me out of it. Maybe not for everyone, but as for me, it takes me out of it a bit. I still obviously can listen to stuff, but it just takes out the immersion a bit of a fictional thing. So that is what Dawson is. And once I do that, obviously, like I said, I go and I'll take a chunk and I'll basically go and I'll start cleaning it up. And after I clean it up is when I start pushing it together. What I mean by that is I'll go to the end and I'll basically start grabbing and I'll start pushing tracks together. So you see how all these are separate? That's mostly because there's some ums and stuff.
You could do much better, and you could do much better.
You see,
you could do much better.
That's
I go
audio
over
leakage.
the two shatters, and I go over.
And this is like an I believe. So I'm
basically,
and
I want to basically bolt
I'm
over
out
and
all the stuttering and like the audio leakage that you just heard that I just showed you. And that's what I'm doing. And the reason I do that is, one, it just makes it flow better. It cleans it up. It makes it sound better. And it's a nice listening experience instead of me stuttering through my sentences like I tend to do a bit. when I'm nervous. And like I just did here as a nervous thing, doing a lot. So as episodes go on, obviously we get better with our and we tend to just stay in character. We tend to like relax a bit. When we first start off, it's always a bit but you don't notice it because I cut them all out, unless it's like in character for it. Like if I keep an it's because that's in character for that thing, and that is just that character being nervous, so I keep it in. But if it's like us table talking or Dawson describing something, I take them out, right? Obviously. So for these, what I do is I'll just clean it up, and then I'll just start moving the track. So what I mean is that if this is spaced out like this, let's say I took it out an fat right here, I'll just take it and I'll move it, and I'll start moving them all down, and then I'll listen to it. And when I listen to it, if I think something moved too fast, let's say I moved this a bit over like that, and now it sounds like this.
The two shadows and I go over and
I guess it doesn't sound like too bad.
Do it, Ian. Don't do it. I see the two shadows and I go over and I want to basically
that too bad. But sometimes it will. You need a breather and you need to make it sound natural. And if it's all pushed together, it doesn't sound natural, right? So that's what I kind of tend to do, is I'll take that and then I will push them all together. And if it doesn't sound natural, I'll space them out, leave pauses, make it sound good. And when I edit, let me just say this, I do not change the story. I do not change or edit it to sound like someone said anything or did anything. All I do is clean it up and take out the take out the stuttering, and just clean up the audio. I'll cut the fluff, and what I mean by fluff is that some of the bloopers count as fluff, right? Bloopers are fluff. And what that means is basically we tend to get off topic and yap a lot. So this was an hour and 20 minute recording. A lot longer than our usual episodes. This was a 2-hour session. I cut 40 minutes of it. One is because sometimes we do bathroom breaks, obviously. We do all these different things. So I cut that. And then sometimes we like to yap and we get off topic. And this was later in the night, so we were yapping a bit more than usual, which is why episode 8 seems a bit chaotic, is because we were recording this at like 12 a.m. We really wanted to get 2 sessions in, so we were feeling fine at 12, and then it's like 2 a.m. We're trying to solve a puzzle Dawson gave us that was the simplest puzzle that we just were too stupid because it's so late that we just couldn't figure out. And I didn't really cut that one. I just kind of cut the spaces for thinking to make it flow better. And that's kind of my job, is to cut out the spaces, cut out the the stutters, just make it flow better, make it it's already coherent and consistent. I just want to make it flow better so it's a better listening experience for our audience. And as I'm doing that, as I'm listening back and pushing it and changing it to how I want to and nudging it, I'll add markers. And please use markers. And anything, use markers. Because what I do is that I'll add these and I'll go one. It does one by itself, but I'll be like, okay, this is my transition into. And this is my transition into the game. And then I'll be like, okay, this is where battle music needs to find. And I'll find some battle music after I edit it all. And I'll basically just keep adding these as I edit. And we get to about 19, right? And that is what I do. So let me just mute this all, and then I'm going to unmute the intro, outro, ambiences, and I'll unmute all of these guys, okay? And if you're wondering what this is all for, this is, after I take all this, it is way easier to add ambience and do sound design when it's all one track and one stereo track, because I pan everything. You need it stereo. If you put it mono, it's just going to make everything half C's again, okay? So it's easier to edit when it's all in one track, because I'm able to just cut it, obviously. If I'm using the telephone, I just pull it down then and there, because sometimes we're talking over each other, or we're talking over the telephone in the background, so then I'll just pull it down and do it there. But usually everything else, I'll just combine it and put it there, and then do it as I go. So now we're in the sound design aspect. I kind of explain my thoughts and everything and how I kind of go about it. I explain as a recap: one, Ophonic; two, Ophonic to level it all out; two, then I dynamically split it all so that I takes out most of the audio leaks and dead space; three, I then cleaned it up in like 10-minute chunks, 20-minute chunks, 30-minute chunks if you have enough time. Again, I'll be editing for maybe, oh my gosh, sometimes I've done it where I edit a whole episode in 10 hours when I have a free day, or I'll do like 5 and 5. And then, so you're doing that, right? You're taking it out. Three, I put it all back together again, and then listen back and space it out if I need to make sure that it is not, what's the word? It's not, it flows good. I basically make it flow good. I take out all the ums, the buts, the all the stuff. Oh, I'll actually show that real quick. And then finally, I render it all down so that I can start on the sound design, making markers along the way as I edit to where I think good stuff would be placed. And sometimes you can put a marker. I just say marker everything, and then you can come back to it. And if you decide, hey, I don't want that, you can just delete it. I've done that I do that all the time. I'll find something and be like, oh wait, that doesn't really need. And I actually kept it in this episode, so you'll be able to see where I didn't add anything. But I'll kind of go with it, and I'll use Dawson as an example. Sorry to call him out, but when he tends to monologue, he does a lot of ums. So if you're wondering how do you take this out, it is easy. It's pretty easy. I mean, so you have, I can kind of tell where it is. So you see that guy right there, right? You see this is an
and
he does that. And how I basically do it is I'll just take it and I'll cut it, which is S on mine. And then you move it and you nudge it, and you kind of just have to play with it a bit. You go
of the back, and it through the right side of the back, and
you kind of just play with it till it sounds natural. So you'll go like, oh, maybe that wasn't a bit. Maybe I'll do this.
Of the back, and
you kind of just play with it till it sounds how you want it to.
And it's quite a bit taller. Lets out a and it lets out a like wet croak, and then it collapses to the ground dead.
And that was obvious. That is also a
lets out a like wet
like, so there's a lot of like thinking, and you can see there's this
lets out
so
a
that's kind
like
of how
wet.
I do it, and then I kind of just merge them, pushing it till it sounds how I like to. And like this one, I didn't even push it. I just pushed it. I just kept it. And most of the time, if you just cut it right, and you'll get used to it the more you do it, obviously, and you'll just kind of push it till it sounds natural. And it also just, if you'll be able to hear if it doesn't sound good, like if it feels too rushed. Like if I did it and I just went and I trimmed this a bit more, and I pushed this here, and then I kind of did that like that,
and it lets out a like wet croak, and then it collapses.
It sounds not as natural, which is why then I just take it
and it lets out a like wet croak, and then
that's kind of how I do that. Sorry to call Dawson out on that. We actually were laughing because when I first started doing this, I was like showing him how I was editing and just getting the hang of it. And this is a funny story. We were on a Discord call, and I was sharing my screen, kind of just what I'm doing now. And I was like, hey, Dawson, you want to see something fun? And he was like, what? And I was like, so you see all these red lines right here where you're talking? And he's like, oh, yeah, what do those mean? And I was like, those are every time you said ums. And when we first started doing it, he was a lot nervous doing a DM, telling his stories, and just kind of going about it. So he had a lot of ums. And if I didn't reset my PC and I was able to show you, I would. But he had a lot. So there was a lot of times where I'm just cut to make it sound good for listening audience, right? So that's kind of what I do. So now let's get into the sound side. I have a couple examples I would love to get into. 1, episode 8, 2, episode 6, episode 1 of Echo in the Pines, episode 2, and episode 3 of Echo in the Pines. And this is the fun part. Editing takes time. Editing, getting it all right, making it sound good it's a whole process on its own, right? You have this whole thing, and by the time you're done, it looks like this cut up thing that kind of looks like a mess to anyone else, but then it's actually just a great thing, right? So once you're done with that, then you get to the fun stuff, or at least for me, it's the fun stuff, is the sound design. And when I think of sound design, it is thinking of like ambience, it's thinking of music, thinking of how can I add to this to not take away from a description that's going on or something the player's saying. How does it add on to kind of bring it up and to really point it out what he's saying? So like if someone's describing something and I want to put some type of effect or in the background, sound effect or theme or ambience, I don't want to do it to where it takes away from what he's describing. I never want to take away from what the DM or player is describing or doing in his action, right? I don't want to do that. What I want to do instead is I want to make sure it lifts it up and brings it and adds onto it. I don't want to take away, because if you're listening to the ambience and you're not focusing about the description, then you're losing the description, which is the whole in the mind, play of the mind type deal when it comes to D&D, right? You don't want to lose that description, because that's the whole part, is these guys and our stupid friends describing whatever they're doing, right? So that is what I think when it comes to sound design. I don't want to take away from the story. I don't want to take away from what they're describing, whether it's DM or player. I want to add on to add either to kind of keep it, either to take you into the story and kind of keep you in there and not pull you out of it, to kind of keep you in this realm of the story, or I want to do it in a way where it kind of just adds to the description. So that's why sometimes ambience is like we're in this dark alleyway. You kind of hear this little alleyway sounds, alleyway play, like this little hum, this like ghastly, dark little like thing, and it kind of keeps you in that story and keeps you immersed. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to keep you immersed, and I don't want to take away that immersion by adding something that completely distracts the listener, right? So this is how I start. The very first thing I do is I put in the intro. This is the intro bit I have, and it is the content warnings along with the theme, coin flip, into the intro, right? And then I have transition into the game, which is obviously that piano bit. Those are constant. Those are something that always happens. What's not constant is what happens after those two things. And that's kind of where I'm able to kind of mess around. And what I use Splice for is to find all those instrumentals, all those ambiences, and all the things that I need, right? So this one was actually I yoinked off YouTube, and it is this like medieval, it was this royalty free, no copyright thing, so I was able to just grab it, and then I basically repeated all the bigger parts because I had some slow down parts, but this was a fight scene, so I'm like, I don't want slowed down. So as you can kind of see, I kind of just mixed it all together, and that's how you got this. And I didn't want this to be loud, because sometimes D&D podcasts will do this thing where they're just blasting music over the audio of the player, and then it's like I'm having trouble hearing the player and getting into the player because of this. So I wanted it in the background where it was like noticeable, but not in your face noticeable. And that's kind of how I go about things, which is why I then thought of this, because I really liked this beginning part of it, this dun 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 dun. So, and that's how I did.
We're just going to pick up right where we left off. Heat of the battle. Not sure what these creatures are. One is dead. Two are still alive. Rog is in a cooked pig eating.
Anything? I don't remember if I panned it. Let me check the items. No, I did not pan it. I just turned the volume down a bit. If you look right here, this volume is, I separate my ambiences if you're wondering my organization. When I do ambience, I always make a couple tracks. I do ambience regular, that's just same volume. I do one that's a bit lower for like, you'll see later on when I talk, there's like these night ambiences that's like loud but not too loud where it needs to be low. And this guy's just so loud where if I didn't put him up, he would sound So I just had to turn them down because it would overpower the main point, and that's that we're an initiative and we need a focus that we're an initiative, right? So that's what I did. And
fighting, and we are starting with Israel.
I would like to.
And so I always do a regular, a kind of low, and a low. And then I have one for sound effects, and every sound effect I use, because I can kind of adjust those via the knob right here, right? And then I have one for music, if I ever add music in. And I guess this is music in itself, but like it's more like interlude music, like if I have an interlude and stuff. So like right here, I made this on the spot, which is the little transition. And that's what's next. This is like, and if you're wondering, yes, it's called transition from yapping. We tend to yap a lot. Okay. So I just put we're yapping, and it kind of gives me a reminder. Oh yeah, wait, we're trying to get into a story. So I made this guy. I really like this like lo-fi type deal. So I kept that, and that was just your transition. And I always try to fade it in.
You won't have it.
Like a laugh is a great time to transition into a. If you're gonna try and plan it anytime, plan it when they're doing a laugh, because a laugh is not only just a great way to transition from like slowly bringing up music into it. It's just a great transitions thing overall, because you can either, if it's too loud, you can slowly pick it down. If it's fine like this. And it's just a great, laughs are just a great way, because it's not like you're there talking. It's not like you're cutting off the middle of a conversation. They're just laughing. So you can slowly fade it into the background as the music comes up and then transitions into the main campaign, right? So if you're ever editing and you want to transition this in from like a yapping, like we're just getting off topic, because I forget what this was about.
I have Lane with an
Oh, this was me and Logan bickering after this. Right, and this is out of it.
I have.
So that is what that is, and this is our ad spot. This is 30 minutes in. I put the ad spot around 30, halfway through. So I plan like 30, 40 is when I put it in, and this is our 2 ad spots that we're doing, and really great. Funny podcast. This one's like a horror, like a comedy where it's like your favorite like all-star horror monsters team up and do. It's very fun. And this one's like your, it's like a, oh my gosh, I'm blinking out on it. I'm so sorry. Because I yap with these people about editing too, and they do a whole different thing that I do, because this is more like audio drama-esque, because they're using a different system than D&D.
Continued the endeavor.
And when I went to this, obviously, if you notice, for this one, the speech is the same one from episode 6. In episode 6, we actually did not have this. Dawson wrote this after the episode, and I just took it from this episode and put it in episode 6, right? So we've had, if you're wondering, yeah, we've had these episodes since episode 6, right? We keep them in the bank, so we have like 9 and 10 in the bank, right? It just helps if you're ever doing a D&D podcast, keep episodes in the bank. If people get sick, if stuff comes up, life happens, make sure to keep episodes in the bank so that you don't screw yourself and you have to be like, oh, I have to not release an episode. Keep 2 in the bank. If you release bi-weekly, that's a month's worth right there, which is insane to think about, right? So what I wanted to do with this is I was like, I don't want a fireplace. That doesn't make sense, because when I did episode 6, he was in a fireplace, right? So instead, I was like, okay, let's maybe some synths, maybe some like memory thing, which is why I found this. And it was this very like ambience, like piano play something a bit, tiny bit, like.
Dear Senator Maz Flynn and Governor Heron Blint, I trust that you have continued the endeavor of locating.
And that's kind of why I came up with that, right? And then it goes to the cross promo. And this was just your basic gas things. I was like, oh, there's a gas spraying I want to do.
Or
like,
a gas shoots out of that groove.
Gas release. And I had to turn that down a lot and then fade it out too, because it was way too much. It was very loud, very not what I wanted to do at all. All right, so I just cut that, or I trimmed it. This one is some Brightfold Wilds. Actually, I will pull them up because they are amazing, and they're actually this person that I work with that does music and ambience and battle maps and scenes and animated stuff, and I have their Patreon. So they have this whole, let me just pull them up real quick for you. Yes, I have their Patreon, and it's like $1 a month, like if you want the basic thing, and then like $2 or like $5 if you want different things. So it's insane that you get all this. So if you're doing podcasts, you're doing any ambient stuff, you want music, you want battle maps, even if you want some animated scenes, they have all this stuff, and it is actually insane. And they message me on Patreon, and we work to come up with different things that work with the podcast ourselves. And they actually put us down here, which we're grateful that they did. We didn't even they just DM the person that does all this, because I believe it's just one person, DM'd me and was like, hey, could we put this up? We would love to do this since we worked with you a lot. And I was like, yes, yeah, I would love to. I mean, and it is cool how things just work out like that. And I'm so thankful as someone that edits and does ambience and does all this, the way they do some crazy cool stuff, and just the stuff they have. Like, this is their Patreon, right? $1, $3, $5. The highest thing you can get to be like the top thing is $10 a month. There are Patreons that are worth $10 a month for the lowest. Okay. And it is insane how much you get for just $1 a month. And you can also just, if you don't want their Patreon, you can support them directly. They're on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and you can also just buy all their stuff from here, and they take like PayPal and everything. It's very cool. Their ambience is very nice, and I love that. It's like legit was a lifesaver. I was looking for ambience and trying to find some good stuff, and Splice sometimes has it all, but it doesn't have everything that I need when going across this steampunk fantasy thing and mixing it up. And they were able to like come up with a whole steampunk fantasy. Like episode 6, there's a lot of background noise and steampunk stuff. They made that, and I'll show that because it is absolutely amazing. They made this one, and it's like this ambience, this low ambience. I'll put this in this guy so that you
There's like a
start searching. Everybody, keep your eyes open. And remember, it looks like this. And I hold up the sigil to like remind them what it looks like.
Sounds
really
good.
great.
Could I like take a piece of paper and kind of just trace over a sigil and kind of hand out an individual?
Okay, this is definitely the alleyway. Like when I think of this, it was like this creepy alleyway. We're on this like side quest because it is a side quest, right? We're on this side quest to find the sigil. Spoiler, sorry. Let's do this. And I was like, okay, this is definitely your alleyway thing. And then I didn't want to keep it on forever.
Now, Karn, you walk in,
and he walks into the warehouse, and that's when I turn it off. That's when I cut it and I fade it out, and because they're not in here, they're in the warehouse now. So I take it off, and I had to double it, but that was fine. And then this is just a transition little melody I found. This is the water splash.
so you fall into it. You know, in ice.
So every time he said you fall into it, I did a water splashing. So this one's Logan. This one is, I guess that one is me. Sorry, because I Eldritch Blast that sucker. This one was Logan.
Follows Ian.
He jumps in.
Yeah, he jumps in.
And then I did the splash into this like ocean waves because I couldn't find, like, when I thought of sewers, I was like, okay, this is what I got. And since it's a water sound and it's kind of all like theater of the mind stuff,
It like thrown into the well water in this big antechamber, and there is a pedestal surrounded by fire.
The well water, how high up is it?
If
Is
I'm
it
correct,
like
I'm the one who
knee
has to
height?
destroy the sigil, right?
The water is like knee height, and
I kind of kept it on
A 12? Okay, so he throws you up.
And I stopped it when they started doing like descriptions and stuff. Because I didn't want to keep it on for a lot. I tend not to try and keep like ambience on. Like if it's like a 10-minute, if we're in this place for 10 minutes, I do not want to keep this repeating 2-minute thing on for 10 minutes, right? Like that doesn't seem feasible. I feel like as a listener will get tired of it. And so I'll slowly, like when it starts and you're getting into it and you hear everything, it keeps you into that theater of the mind, and then I'll fade it out so then it only is focusing on player voices, and then it kind of keeps that, which is what I wanted. Okay, so as we do that, we have this like fire I add to it, and I don't know if you can really hear it, but this is a bit in the background, right? This is a bit panned, if you hear that. And because it's panned, I didn't want it like in the middle, and I didn't want it to be like just like, because I didn't want it to mix and mush with this fire thing, because this was supposed to be the main thing. This was hellfire, right? And this was just your basic thing. So, but I still wanted the ocean in the background, and the best way to do that is to pan it. If you want something to seem like it's in the background, screw around with panning it, whether you want to pan it fully to the right or to the left or like only a bit. Just mess around with it. A lot of editing and figuring all this sound design stuff is a lot of just trial and error. Like the amount of times I've like scrapped ones and then be like, okay, I want this one, and then I'm like, okay, no, I don't want this one anymore, and I scrap it. Just play around with it. That's the fun part about sound design, is there's a lot of freedom to it. So just play around with what you like and what you think sounds good. And I mean, it's your show, it's your podcast, do your thing that you're doing. Do what you love, okay? I mean, if you're not loving what you're doing, why are you doing it? Do it. It's fun. Or I hope you're having fun if you're doing it. So, and that's kind of how you get this sapphire crackling with oceans in the background. And when Logan talks,
Destroyed. I position myself when I.
It's sometimes hard to hear it too. Unless, like, it all depends on the speaker. Like, I'll sometimes listen to these episodes in my AirPods, and then in the car, and then, like, if I use my over-the-ear headphones, which I use when editing, it will sound different. So I always like to play in different things, and that's kind of how I did it. And because this one was kind of like this fire, and the oceans was in the back, I kind of kept it on for a bit. Kept it on for, like, it looks like 2 minutes. And that was because it also had this crackling, because this is the part where Logan basically starts trying to mess with the sigil, and he ends up bringing the fire up more, right? So
there's sparks, and a couple of the flames absorb the sparks and get taller.
So as he does the amber sparks, like when I'm figuring out where to place certain sound effects when Dawson says stuff, because he'll like sometimes describe things. Usually I'll do slowly pan it. So like you'll see I'll show it in Echo in the Pines a lot, is it slowly pans, and then I'm able to just kind of do that. With this one, it's a lot of like, if he says something, then I'll do the sound effect after and make it so it's like, one, I don't want to do a sound effect where it takes away from what he's saying, and I don't want to do a loud sound effect if he's about to say something right after, because then it kind of trumps the words the sound effect does. So that's what I did here. Is
there's sparks, and a couple of the flames.
Very subtle, very light, something that doesn't take away from what he's describing, just adds on to it. And that's kind of my whole thing. Like the whole thing I've been saying is that I don't want to, when doing sound design and doing music and doing all this other stuff, and the reason I turned down Preacher's thing, and I'll show you in episode 6, is I don't want to take away from the descriptions. I don't want to take away, even though I like something and I might like what it sounds like full volume, I don't want to take away from the descriptions. I don't want to take away from what the player, the DM is describing, and I want to make sure the focus is still on their words and what they're saying, because it's a audio only podcast. You can only hear them, and if something is overpowering the audio, obviously that's not great. So that's why I basically tend to just make sure if it's not sorry, I'm trying to form my thoughts. I want to make sure that I keep it so that it's not overpowering. I want to make sure that the player, the DM, whoever is the main guy still. And I want to make sure, just like when I do music and I do the theme making and I use something to kind of fill in the cracks, this is kind of fill in the cracks. It's supposed to add to the immersion, not overpower the immersion. It's not supposed to take you away. If it's too loud and it overpowers it, then it can do the opposite of what you want. Instead of adding to the immersion, to the theater of the mind, it will take away from it and it will pull you out of it, because all you hear is fire in your ears so loud that you can't even hear the player trying to describe what he's saying, right? And that's what I don't want, which is why I do this. So if you look here, I was supposed to have some flame burning, some water flowing, and I decided to just scrap that because, like, I already did water, and I just was like, I don't want water going on for so long because it is just this, like, I just didn't want that. I just didn't think it would sound good, even though I put it there, and I had, like, even this, like, water extinguished hellfire, and then shattered the dagger, and then these, I did do the chain heat sounds, I just didn't move that. And like the dagger shattering when Fido tried to hit it one more time, right? Like, I could have done this whole thing. It just, I didn't see a point to it, and I didn't see a need to it, which is why I didn't do it, because I want to do it where it adds to it, obviously, like I've been saying, and I just didn't see a need for it. It seemed like it would be too much at once, if that makes sense. Like, I found, and what I thought was that if it was this far, it would be too much, too all the time, and if you keep doing it, it can also have the opposite effect, where if it's too much all the time, then it's like back to back to back to back, different things being shoved in your ear, right? But I did keep this, which was this
chain. The other end attaches itself, and then the chain gets extremely bright red as it heats up slowly, getting closer to Fido's arm before stopping, and the two sigils shattered.
So we won.
And now,
Fido, I need a drink.
And then once with me and Logan started going in character again, I had the waves.
Dude, I literally texted the group chat today. I'm like,
I started doing this, and then
me and Logan and Israel are dumb and dumber. So we just go up basically.
And then, the episode ends, and then we do the theme. We didn't really have a blooper that episode, and that's kind of what I did. So I'm gonna kind of speed run, because we're at an hour and a half right now. I'm gonna speed run this, and now that I kind of did my thoughts, I'll kind of just show you. Now that I kind of explained how I sound design and what I do, and I use Splice. All these things were in Splice. If you want something amazing, please use Splice. I mean, you look here, you want to look at cinematic effects, right? You have ambience, owls. I can search something up. Let's say I want like a, I want something slice flesh. Like if I want something like that, it'll show me this. It's not playing it right now, but it will show me, and then it will play the thing, and then I can add it and then download it. And what I really like about Splice is that if I have something I want, let's say I get one of my sounds, and once it's downloaded, the best part about it is I can drag and drop it onto my track. Legit, I can just take it, and that's what sold me on Splice, is that some of them, like if you do other stuff, you have to download it, and then you download the zip file from the website, right? And then you download that, and once you download the zip file, then you have to unzip it and then go to the folder and then grab it all. And it's a whole process. With Splice, even though it's a paid thing, it makes my workflow much easier, that it's so worth it. And I mean, like, Aphonic's not a paid thing, right? And I still use that when editing and doing all that. And it's just kind of, is it worth it for you? Is it worth taking away the time that it would when doing this? Because editing's already a long process, and I'm busy with college and school and work and everything. And it's like, when I'm editing and I take the time to do this, because I enjoy editing, it's a nice break, it's relaxing, and I like doing this. And if you're not enjoying doing this stuff, why are you doing it? I mean, if you're not enjoying what is supposed to be your hobby or your free time, why are you doing it at all? I mean, it's the real question. I mean, why are you taking it as work? Because you wanted something out of it? I don't know. Uh, but you should enjoy what you do. And if you're not enjoying it, you should find a new hobby. I mean, it's not a hobby if you're not enjoying it. So, or maybe, I mean, I have a bad relationship with Call of Duty, a hate-love relationship where I love the game, hate it sometimes, but I still go back to it because it's a childhood game and I love playing it. So I guess there is that. But in saying that, I mean, obviously this is a free podcast, and I guess your podcast prove that we're doing this for free. We don't make a nick off this whole thing, and or a cent off this whole thing, and it just depends on what you want to do. And I love doing this, so I invest in it a bit because I just like it. This whole podcast was a passion project. Like, I mean, me and Dawson, and how this kind of went about was me and the guys wanted to play D&D, and I like recording and I like doing this, and I really thought it would be fun to do a D&D podcast or record it and then edit it. And I really like doing music and sound design, as you've seen me explain my whole thing, figuring it all out. I really enjoy it a lot. So I wanted to do something like this, and I've really had this creative itch where I needed to fill it, because I did a play for a bit, and then I did now I do this, and I needed to scratch that, which is where D&D came in with improv and doing all that, which I enjoy a lot. So we ended up being like, let's play some D&D, and I was like, hey, could we just record a session? So we recorded the session with these crappy mics, doing a session 0 with our characters that you'll never hear. We might re-record it, but it was these crappy $10, maybe even $5 Amazon mics, and we recorded it, and I put it together. And as guys were listening to it, I was like, what if we made a podcast? And at first we were kind of like, the guys were like, maybe let's, I don't know. And as I was editing, I was like, hey, let me edit one episode, and then and then tell me after your thoughts. So I edited an episode, we all listened to it, and then we played it, and we were like, okay, maybe this could be a thing. Maybe, hopefully people find us funny. I don't know. I just wanted to do something creative. And the fact that it gained, I don't know, we're at 700 followers to count right now on Instagram, and almost 700 downloads all together, is unbelievable. Oh my gosh. When we released this, we were thinking we were going to maybe have, like, we would have been, me and Dustin and all the guys would have been happy with 5 downloads max, and like 2 listeners. And the fact that we have like almost 100 followers across all our platforms is insane. And I am and everyone else is so thankful for all of that. I mean, really, it is absolutely a blessing. And it is crazy to think that this little passion project gained some traction and something like that. So we are all loving what we do. And I just love doing this. So I put a little money in it, put a little time in it, and I just enjoy what I do. So I hope you guys enjoyed all this. So to end it and to end this video, I'm going to skip episode 6 because I kind of did episode 8. I'm going to go through the one-shots and go through all of those. All right. So here's how we did the one-shots. The one-shots were more story-driven. And what I meant by that is that going into it, we know we didn't have a lot of leeway to screw around because these were supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be almost like an audio drama in a sort. In a sense where we're mostly always in character, and it is not a set story. Like, we didn't know the story, but we were improvising. Everything was improv. So it's not like a planned out thing. Dawson planned it all out, obviously, because he's the DM, but like everyone else was improv. So we had no clue of anything going into it. So when we were doing this, we were like, okay, so what it's going to do, what it's going to work out. And we were just trying to stay in character and stay in our thoughts as Dawson led us along with this story. So that's why it was more set, and I kind of more thought of it as an audio drama, when doing all this, because it kind of felt like that in a bit, honestly. So here's what we did, and here's kind of my thoughts. We had a max of like, obvious. I think we had a lot. I don't know why our markers disappeared, but we had a lot more markers. I don't know where they went. I think they deleted themselves. Lovely. But when doing this, I could kind of think of this as I was playing, and I had to turn my editing brain off and stay in character, right? But when doing this, I was like, okay, they're at a family dinner. And I'm kind of just, whenever I think of sound design, I'm like picturing in my head, I'm like, okay, what would be here? I'm like, okay, so there's some, like, I want some broadcast. I want some staticky broadcast on the radio. And I want, like, some static in the background, like a radio or something like that, right? Which is how I came with this. And this looks like your static, right? This is supposed to be for the TV. Or this is supposed to be like the fireplace. I wanted some fireplace. I wanted some static. And that's where I found this guy. You pair it with the... And that's like your background TV. And that was my main setter. And this one I didn't care about. I put it through the whole thing. Like, I put it for 3 minutes. Because our intros between switching were pretty short, right? So I put it for 3 minutes. And then, until it turns off. Because we're going to like dad and stuff. I mean, before the dinner scene goes away. And then I go and watch TV or play games, whatever. In this scene, I played Resident Evil, the original one, is what Dawson told me. So that's what I kind of did, right? And that's what I wanted to replicate. And why, when I started this,
billowing around them,
I give it some breathing room to kind of, like, I give it some breathing room to kind of introduce the scene and to introduce what you hear, and then it gets you immersed, and then it goes into the actual
billowing around them
story.
Mom, can I...
And literally, Dawson, oh my gosh, because it's so funny, because this is all improv. We don't know what's going on. When you hear this intro Dawson does of my character, that's the first thing I hear. And then there was like a pause of silence, and he goes, and he just looks at me, and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to start this off. And then I'm like, okay, what are we going to eat? I don't know. I just thought of mashed potatoes or green beans or whatever I said. And
could I get some more mashed potatoes? Could you pass them over, please?
Yes, honey.
And I really enjoyed that. And then we have the TV static.
Your VHS player is not working.
Obviously, right there. And then here is what I liked, which was mixing these two sounds, right? So this was your high pitch, and then this was your low bass, and like that low bass sound. So when you put them together,
Your bed.
I'm not in my bed.
And I kind of did this every time there was a scary thing or a psychological horror thing or something that was kind of like off. I made sure to put a sound to kind of match with that, and so that's what I did.
I'm not in my bed.
No, you're not in your bed.
Like,
in fact, you wake up in a dark room, but you know this is not your bed because your bed is not solid wood. Your bed.
And then
wood bed.
Do I think I'm asleep?
And then once he finishes it, and then I go into the next thing,
solid wood bed.
Do I think I'm
and then it stops once I start talking. And that's kind of my thought process every time. It's like, what do I want? Does it fit? And does it work with it? Will it take it away? Like, all the things I've been talking about is like, does it take away from it? Does it flow well? Does it add on to the story, or does it distract you from this immersion? Because you want to be in this like theater of the mind. And that's what this one was.
As you're crossing over into sleep, you hear it. A sound of a metal door.
And that's the door sound effect. That's the door.
As you're crossing over into sleep, you hear it.
Also, you might have heard this, but we were in these rooms separately, right? So I recorded this by myself with Dawson only. And then Logan, I left the room. Logan recorded his with Dawson. And then we combined. So all of this, Dawson planning was insane, because like listening back, I'm like, Logan was the one through the door, and then he did this thing where it was like he sees me walk back forward, and then he told him that he's like this whole thing where it's like, okay, that's obvious, like, right, you're hearing this, but and like when Logan does this whole thing where he's like, oh, and he kind of notices it when we're combined, when I start sharing my story. It's because he clicks with him what's happened because he finds me in that room, but I didn't know anything, right? Because I didn't know his part of the story, and I didn't know he was the man behind the door with those eyes. So like all the creepy bits are really just Logan sometimes, and it was really insane. Same with like this.
Blows in snow.
So this is Logan's, and I wanted he like snow, so I found this snow one that I really liked. Right, it was like this snow thing, and I was like, okay, I really enjoy that. And then I was like, okay, now I need some footsteps to add onto it, because he's walking in the snow, and it really adds to the immersion, at least for me. So I'm thinking of this as like an audio drama audio thing. So the sound design has to fit well and fit. And this is very meticulous. Like just like I thought of this a lot and thought of what to do and trying to figure this out because I wanted this to be right and I didn't want this to be screwed up basically. So
goes in snow onto the mudroom floor of the quite large house that his parents own, and he looks and, he makes his way across the normal 200-foot gap between the two buildings, his house and the shop, where there's a small gym set up for him.
Man, Mom and Dad are surely gonna get...
And that's kind of what got me and was like, okay.
Goes in snow.
And then now
your choices. Now I'm making a
glance at the clock and see it's 7:30 at night.
It's a little late. I'll have to make this quick.
All right, yeah. As you open the door, the blue...
And it kind of adds, like, you want to make sure you're not doing this all at the beginning of his descriptions. If your DM is describing something or a player is describing something and they keep adding on, make sure to add that when they say it. Like, he says, oh, clock's here. He's still inside. So why would the snow be blowing like this when he's inside, right? So that's why I kind of did it after. And I was like, okay, that's where it is. And then obviously there's like the snow. And then I mixed the snow with like this
extra pair of like footprints, wet footprints on the concrete floor of this. And you look at the floor. And
because it was a creepy thing, and then
you
obviously
are in.
Like this,
oh, my head!
It's like echo chamber abandoned.
Oh man, that's kind of.
And that's kind of worked well with it. What I really thought was funny was like Dawson said, you hear your voice echo.
Hello, can you hear me? Is anybody there? Hello?
As you say this, it echoes around the room that you're in. Your own voice echoing.
That is reverb. You are correct. Again, good job. And that's kind of what it does. The rest of it is obviously just figuring out what I want to do, figuring out this. And I will do one thing because I really enjoyed it was episode 2. And that was a fun one because there was a lot of like they were in a school and stuff, right? Abandoned school. So we have this one, and this one's I wanted like in school you like hear the buzzing, and you hear this like auditorium buzz, right? And you always know that like one broken light in school, and it's just this like low hum. And I found exactly that via Splice again, right? So I found that, and it's, and I didn't want to overpower it, so like I did turn it down. It is in the turned down stuff, but
getting late. I should probably start thinking about heading home.
Again,
this is his story.
I used that to introduce the scene.
Man,
give it some breathing time.
This is his story.
Let the audience hear.
Man, it's getting late. I should probably start thinking about heading.
Usually I cut breaths, but this whole one shot I do not cut breaths, and that is because one, it's a horror thing, so you want to keep your breaths too. It's more faced like an audio drama, so usually audio dramas keep their breaths in, and they keep like their heavy breathing, and they keep everything because it kind of helps with like, it's like thinking of it like you're watching a movie without the movie. You're only listening to it. You still have all the sound, you still have all the sound design, you still have all the stuff. It's just no movie, so you still have all your breaths and still have all this stuff, right? So that's why I kept them in. Plus, like sorry, my other character, Edward, has a lot of anxiety, so he tends to, I am blanking out. He tends to, He tends to just have panic attacks and then hyperventilate. That's what it's called, hyperventilate. And so he has a lot of heavy breathing, which is why I kept that in. So you have
This is his story.
And as the buzz goes, if you look here, you're like, oh, you're fading it. That's because this is the creepy part where like some man shows up randomly in the middle of the hallway and then disappears. So like I wanted to fade
area
the buzz
nearby.
because then it's kind of like it is. If I'm thinking as the guy, if I see that, I'm not hearing that buzz anymore because I'm more focused on this. And that's when the creepy music comes in because you're not focusing on the buzz anymore. That dims into the background as this shows up. And as it disappears, the buzz comes back again, is what I thought.
It seems like there's something like in the hallway.
I tried the main entrance.
The main entrance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Person?
You'd have to investigate the line to see it.
Don't like that. Well, I mean, I'm just coming from fencing practice.
And then the buzz comes. And then it obviously I do it again over here. And then I also cut the buzz and we kind of do that. And then this is like the auditorium light. And then this
is like they've been walking in some sort of like.
This again is the stuff made by Fantasy Forge. Amazing stuff.
It's like they've been walking in some sort of like wet stuff. You're not sure if it's the snow from outside, if there was water in the pool area, or if it's that weird liquid.
A lot of their horror genre ambience from Splice, but I also used a bit of here. Same with this. So with this one was his
as the howl of the wind
this time.
Yes, I love the wind.
Like he'll say the howl of the wind.
Well, you begin to follow it as the howl of the wind begins to rustle through the forest.
Just so you know, my sword is also.
He's like the howl of the wind. I'm like, okay, so I need the winter because it's snowing outside, and we already explained it with Logan that it was snowy outside. So I just took that one, put it there, and took it from episode 1, put it in episode 2 because you can just drag and drop everything. And then I was like, okay, now I need the wind. So I found a wind one. I obviously turned it down, as you can see, because it was way too loud for what it needed to be. And that's what I did. And then you kind of just have the forest. And then here...
No one barely knows I'm out here anyway.
Yeah, so you're really hoping...
I just, again, yoinked Logan's thing, put it to Israel, because it doesn't matter if you repeat the same sound effect. It was the same thing. They're both outside. They're both in the snow. You're both going to hear the same thing, right? So that's kind of what I did. Here's
a loud crashing sound from further in the building.
And a lot of the time, I did not do sound effects. I tried for this one. I did a lot of ambience because I wanted to add to the descriptions of what Dawson was saying, and I didn't want to take away by putting in all this like gory horror sound design stuff. I wanted to just kind of keep it like adding to it, and like as a listener you start hearing something and then you're like, oh, something creepy is coming up, something gory.
Okay, there is a smiley face.
Same with that, and then you hear like that, right?
Where's the dojo?
Who do you think you are?
So here is this one I like a lot.
Room
is this guy. So I kept
other than where you are. All right, so you stand in the middle of the room, and
this I kept the same. If you notice, every time they do the time stop, I kept it the same. I kept it in the second episode. I kept it in the third episode. It's all the same. And the reason I did that is because when I was thinking of time stop, and when I think like, because obviously there's a lot of different versions of time and freezing time and all this, and slowing down time in a sense. And when I think of it in a horror thing, I think of it as like, you don't see the monstrosity, but you stand in the circle. Everything seems like it's daytime, right? And you see it all. And when I think of it, I think of this like chorus, like this voice comes in, and it's like this, like just this low chorus, vocal stuff, and then it's like this synth. And I found this, and I really liked it, and I kept it because I really enjoyed this whole. And I'll play it solo for real quick. I really enjoyed this beginning part. It really just clicked to me in my head, because sometimes it's like hard to explain, but it just like clicked to me that, okay, this would be like a freezing time. This would be like a slow down time.
Happening.
And then it
run back towards Will.
Okay, well, when you do,
it stops when he runs out. So, and that is episode 2 a bit. And I'm sorry if this is not a good explanation. I'm trying my best. I hope this is an explanation that is good. I really do. Okay, so let's go with this. You're like, Henry, there's so much. Trust me, I know. So here is the ambience of the cavern. I really like that one.
Jeez. Listen, Edward,
really
I don't know where we are, but you need to calm down, okay? Just keep a level head. We'll get through this. There's got to be an X.
Chairs making an X across a circular room.
This one was fun because every time they describe this one, and it's like this, like these chairs and this horror and this thing, and I really wanted this like vocal chorus thing because like whenever I think of that, it was very fitting for it. In a sense of like it's the 90s, it's this like almost cultish looking thing from the outside if you didn't know it was supernatural, and it just reminds me of like pitchforks up, you're going to do whatever, you're gonna go find this horror entity or whatever, which really was fun for me. So,
cavern with 4 stone chairs making an X across,
which is why I took that one. And now this one was
everyone is walking extremely slow. They might as well be still, but they are moving.
That's the same time stop. Obviously, this is the ambience I used when he described.
And as you do, you catch a glimpse of a hand grabbing you. Up to,
and I just enjoyed that one. That's then just a nice horror ambience, a nice little put in there while he's describing stuff, and it just gets the vibe good. It just does this. This one was fun.
Rips the clown face.
I really like this one. I wanted to pick like almost this like circusy like because like obviously this whole thing was like he is a circus clown and what's his name? Jack was afraid of clowns. So I wanted this like horror circus like I wanted at least some bells, some type of instrument that wasn't just this chorus or hum or this like ambience, this empty abandoned ambience to it that I used a lot, which is when I found this guy also using splice, which reminded me of like if a creepy wind up Jack thing, like you Jack in the Box, or yeah, I guess Jack in the Box, you wind you dun, 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 and then you push it down and it pops out. That's what this whole thing reminded me of, especially with all those different like chord plucking and these keys
Came from, but you are not here. You're not real.
Really
You've got
me, and I was like, okay, that is definitely what this would sound like and what I would wanted. Same with this one.
And start dragging him across the room.
Oh my gosh, get off me.
And this is also like for the rest of it's basically the same. It is trying to fit and figure out where I want stuff. So it was like, okay, this is where ambience is and what do I kind of want. And it's just a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of figuring stuff out. So to end this off, because I've been yapping for a while, I'm going to show you one of my favorite things I did with this one, which was, let me find it. Control M. Oh wait, Control M. There we go. And then mute you. Oh wait, you, and then unmute you. So this one was my favorite one. So this one was like he repeated the line twice. Okay, Dawson did, and that was because their voices started to getting in sync, and I wanted to express that. And the reason why Dawson didn't keep doing that was because one, it's a lot of time to go back and forth between all the stuff you're juggling as a DM, along with repeating lines and remembering to repeat the lines. Two, it was very creepy, and Dawson just wanted to do it for a short bit. Okay, and I made it, and I showed Dawson this, and he was like, okay, this is very unsettling, because I panned this 30, panned this 30. When you do it, they both say it at the same time.
Son.
And it was very good. I really enjoyed how that turned out because I was looking forward to that a lot because I pitched that idea to Dawson. I was like, what if the parents like voices started going like when they started going together, I layer it so that they're both talking at the same time as like an amalgamation of the voices. And for this one, I had to space out the dad a bit.
Our decision is best
because he did do it at the same time, which is fine. As the editor, as doing the sound stuff, you're able to do what you need to do. So you're kind of just oversight on all that. You're the editor.
Listen to us.
And that, oh my gosh. And the whole way it turned out, I really enjoyed where it was like Parker, who was Will, played Will, was like telling me to keep doing this, and then the dads, and then just the dynamic of Parker parents, and then me right after. It was just very enjoyable. I liked how that turned out a lot. So, in saying that, we're gonna end this because we're almost at 2 hours here, okay? And if you got anything, I hope one, you learned a bit of sound design and editing, and if you didn't, I'm so sorry. I tried my best. I'm a bit of a yapper. 2, if you have more questions, join our Discord. I'll link it. It's in the link of the YouTube bio. I'll put it down in the episode description so you can copy and paste it. Just join the Discord. Chat, DM me, whether you want to do it in the Hangout section of our Discord or DM me on Discord privately. Love to chat and hang out and talk about editing and any questions. Love to help and whatever. So we talked about the themes. We'll recap the editing because I think I'm going to separate these between editing and sound design. For editing, 1, you take everything, you clean it up, put it all together. I already did the editing. Never mind. Sound design. 1, make sure when going about it, you never want to take away from the immersion. You never want to overpower what the player and the DM says, because this is D&D after all, right? This is players describing stuff and DMs describing stuff, and they're taking their own theater of the mind and relaying it to the listener. You never want to take away from that, and you never want to overpower that by taking something and putting something in that will distract them from where they think back about it and they're like, what did they even say again? Like, you never want to overpower their descriptions and distract them from it, right? Because this is a D&D podcast. This is an audio drama. This isn't this. You're there to listen to people play D&D and to have a good time with improv and comedy and everything. So you don't want to take away when doing sound design or ambience. You don't want to take away from their descriptions, right? 2, use Splice, use Fantasy Forge. Oh my gosh. Use any of those. Find some ambience. You can always go royalty free. YouTube to MP3 player, like MP3, and then pop it in your track if you want to. Like, that is great. Have fun with it. I mean, if you are doing this, and this kind of the last point is just have fun with it. Because if you're not having fun doing something, like, especially when it comes to a podcast and D&D podcast, then why are you doing it? Especially if it's not something you get paid for. If you get paid for editing and doing this, then that is, I guess, is fine. That is your job. But even then, if you are not enjoying this, especially when you're doing it in a sense where this is all just a passion project and you're doing this because you love doing this, if you're not enjoying editing, maybe think about why you're not enjoying it, what's making it not enjoyable, and try and help and kind of think about the whys and how you can fix that. Because this whole thing should be an enjoyable process. Maybe it sometimes is a bit boring at times, editing, but the sound design is the best part, at least for me. It is like the icing on the cake, right? And if you're not enjoying your process and enjoying doing something like this, even though it's sometimes called the labor work and the most intensive part of doing a D&D podcast, why are you doing it? I mean, you should have fun in all things you do, and especially if it's a passion project and a hobby that you enjoy, just have fun with it, okay? don't stress too much. And I can't explain this enough. I stress a lot about the details, and there's still a lot of things I can fix about myself when doing stuff like this, because I am very detail oriented, and sometimes I like to think too much into things. So just have fun with it. Don't think too much into it, and just enjoy the process of going along, and keep trying to figure out what you can do to improve, because there's always something. I mean, I keep figuring out stuff I can improve every time I do an edit. So just enjoy this thing. And if you're not enjoying it, find something you do enjoy. Because if this is a passion project, if you're doing this for free, if you're doing this just because you just love, just because you enjoy and love this, and you're then not enjoying this, then find something you enjoy. Don't stop doing something you don't like. Do something new. Okay. Just do something that you enjoy. Have fun with it. Don't think of it as some side thing you have to do and worry about, and some like laundry and homework that you have to do, because then it's just going to make it worse. Have fun, enjoy the process, and if you have any questions, I'm always down to message. Okay, so that is the end of it. We are officially at the 2 hour mark, and I will be putting 3 timestamps in, one for music, one for editing, one for sound design. So I hope you guys all enjoyed me yapping for 2 hours. And this was a lot of fun to make. And if you want more behind the scenes stuff, just let me know. So bye. Bye. Bye.